Anybody can be a Force sensitive. I mean, that's been the idea since the original trilogy, I feel like. And even though I'm a huge prequel stan, I do feel like the prequel movies kind of made it seem like there was a scientific motivation behind actually being Force sensitive, actually being special. And that just kind of ruins the magic a little bit about how anybody can be Force sensitive. Anybody could be a Jedi. But there's a difference between being a Jedi and then being like Luke Skywalker, being a prodigy, being the best that's ever been. Kind of like, everybody has an opportunity to try out for a team or to develop a skill, whether it's athleticism or arts, but it doesn't mean you're going to be the Da Vinci. It doesn't mean you're going to be the GOAT, Messi, LeBron James, Tom Brady. No. Just because you have the opportunity to wield the Force doesn't mean you're going to be a Jedi, let alone Grand Master of the Jedi Order. As much as I am an Anakin Skywalker stan, that boy was clapped in several of the episodes and a lot of his fights. For instance, like episode 2, when Count Dooku makes him look like a joke, and in Revenge of the Sith, where Anakin is completely turned to the dark side, but he still is the chosen one, he absolutely gets the O2 and the handshake from Obi-Wan Kenobi on Mustafar. And I think that's what the greatest lesson here is though even though you have the abilities, even though you have the skill, even though you are born from the Force itself, yes, you are not always going to be the greatest there is, the greatest there was, the greatest there ever will be. But going back to the main idea of everyone being a Jedi, everyone being a Force sensitive, what's the issue? We literally hear this quote in A New Hope from Obi-Wan Kenobi.
The Force? Now, the Force is what gives the Jedi his power. It's an energy field created by all living things. It surrounds us, it penetrates us, it binds the galaxy together.
And basically another version of this in The Empire Strikes Back with Yoda.
Where you should not. For my ally is the Force, and a powerful ally it is. Life creates it, makes it grow. Its energy surrounds us and binds us. Luminous beings are we, not this crude matter. You must feel the Force around you. Here, between you, me, the tree, the rock, everywhere. Yes, even between the land and the ship.
Yes, the Force is in all living things. So if it's in all living things, then perhaps just about anyone can use and manipulate the Force. I remember back on the old Star Wars forums, everybody was theorizing whether or not Han Solo was actually Force sensitive because he was such an incredible pilot. Was it luck? Was it skill? Was it a little bit of both? And I know recently, there's been a lot of stuff about, Grogu being a Force sensitive, Sabine being a Force sensitive, and I know that most of the scrutiny has come from Dave Filoni's writing, and most recently the Ahsoka series. But just because Sabine can wield a lightsaber, just because Ahsoka declares her Padawan, doesn't mean that she's the greatest Jedi of all time. I mean, come on, y'all. Even along the lines of characters like the Knights of Ren, all of them were Force sensitive. They could touch the shadow in a certain way. I mean, if you give them all a lightsaber, there is literally no difference between their skill and Sabine Wren's skill early on in the Ahsoka series. Honestly, they're way more gifted than Sabine in the beginning of the Ahsoka series. I've never really saw the problem with it. I thought that was the entire idea of the Force, that it's in everything. It flows through everybody, not just everyone in the galaxy, but everyone in the entire universe. The rock, the trees, you know the quote, you've seen it, and I've put it in this video. How is it hurting the rest of the story if everyone else can potentially be a Force sensitive? Even to the lengths of Maz Kanata in The Force Awakens and in Rogue One with Chirrut Inua. They also were Force sensitive to a degree. No, they were not lifting rocks, but they were aware of it. They felt it and understood it a lot better than other characters in the entire franchise of Star Wars. I love this angle so much in Star Wars, and I never want to see it dissipate or vanish just because there's influencers and content creators and Twitter people out there saying that, no, this is not the correct way to write Star Wars, even though this is literally how Star Wars was intentionally supposed to be in its first original trilogy. But there's also so many different variants of characters that use the Force. You could be a Sith, you could be a Jedi, you could just be someone who is Force sensitive and attuned to that power. I love the idea of Balin kind of like dissing and insulting characters like Sabine Wren, Ahsoka, even someone like Luke Skywalker as Bo-Katan Jedi. And I think that's an entirely beautiful concept because, yeah, they're not necessarily the same characters that we're seeing, especially those beautiful, righteous Jedi in the prequel trilogy and the High Republic and so on. But that's in another video that I want to talk about specifically about the Bo-Katan and the upbringing of these characters. But what do you think about Dave Filoni saying anybody can become a Jedi with enough training? Do you think it devalues the idea of the Force and the franchise of Star Wars, or do you think it fits perfectly into what George Lucas intended? I love what the original trilogy established, and I love how all the renditions of Star Wars later have pretty much fleshed that out into something new, like what we've seen in the Ahsoka series, like what we've seen in Rogue One, and of course, the Knights of Ren comics. I love this idea. I love everyone being connected to some form, but just because your door is open doesn't mean it's wide enough for the entire force of the universe to flow through. Make sure you subscribe if you want to talk more Star Wars. I'll see you around, all right? Deuces.